Aloha. Happy Aloha Friday. I'm Kaui Lucas. This is Hawaii is My Mainland. I'm going to jump right to it today because there is so much to cover. This week, my guest is Katie Kamelamela. I met her in the summer of 2012 on a trip to Kaho'olawe with a bunch of Native Hawaiian healthcare practitioners and food farmers. And Katie was recently a participant in the AHA. Katie, I'm just going to let you explain the whole semantic argument or discussion around the name. So go for it, Katie.
Thanks for having me on the show, Kaui.
You're welcome.
This is super fun. I guess the AHA, as participants inside have been referring it to, call it the AHA and not the Na'iaupuni AHA. From my perspective, Na'iaupuni outside of logistics didn't really play a role in the AHA. None of the directors were there. The only time I saw the directors was during the meet and greet, and that was very minimal at that. There was no conversation with them. I haven't had any conversations with them, or I think Kuhio did a speech on the first day, but I was late. I was picking up my truck from the docks. But outside of that, there hasn't been any Na'iaupuni contact, in my understanding, with me, with them. And so people just call it AHA. The AHA.
Yeah. The AHA.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully in the future there will be more AHAs, and then we'll have to say, well, this was AHA 1 or whatever. So initially, you didn't know you were signing up to be in the AHA. You were running for the elections.
Right.
And that was you. Hilo is your home?
Yeah, I'm born and raised on Oahu. I just moved to Hilo a year and a half ago in like August 2014 or so. So for school, for research. And so I ran as a Hilo delegate because that's where I'm living currently.
And Katie, you're a botanist. Is ethnobotany your bachelor's?
I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, and I'm a ethnobotanist, which is we study the relationships between plants and people, and my research is about contemporary gathering practices throughout the forests of the state. And I originally was focusing on Native Hawaiian practices like imu underground ovens, and then now we're expanding to other identified demographics of people that are gathering. So no one's really doing that research, so we're doing our best.
And you're doing a lot of it. I saw on, I'm not coming up with the name of the site. It will be on my blog. It's actually on the blog I wrote this morning. The link to the site where all your research is.
Indigenous Ecosystems.
There we go. IndigenousEcosystems.com.
Yeah, that's just my personal site. All of my work is up there that has been published either at conferences or through publications. And then I think even I have links. Oh, is that where you found the podcast with Nea? Well, I have the podcast with Nea up there as the waters rise. So anything that I have a link to, I put up there so it's available at any point in time, and it's referenceable, if that's a word. And it also links to my UH Scholar Space.
So in addition to doing that, you have been very active with the efforts for Kaho'olawe and conservation there, and I've seen you're not just doing the research, you're very much in the dirt. As we walked through the Kaho'olawe, our background was taken from our huaka'i, and watching Katie in her fatigues and boots going through and just loving every plant. It was just an amazing experience. But you've never done anything political before, have you?
Not like openly. I help to organize. I help to support organizing. Maybe like the main event is La Ho'iho'ea.
Okay.
Yeah, which
Independence Day celebration.
Yeah, Independence Day celebration that happens at Thomas Square. The main organizer is Imai Kalani Winchester. And so he's the high chair and I'm the rocking chair, and I'm just his kako'o on the logistics with the grounds. I take care of vendors, and since my move to Hilo, I've taken less of a role. but still there and still planning with him and trying to support him as best as I can.
So let's jump into the AHA. So I can't imagine what it was like to go through this with you're running for election, and the organization that's running the election is being sued, and then so there's the election is called off. That must have been pretty crazy. But let's not spend too much time on that, just to mention that that's what happened. So it morphed into the AHA. And what was your experience of being there?
A lot. It was really emotional. There's a lot of it was a lot. It was a lot of different people I've never met before. I didn't know more than a handful of people there. Some people were my professors before, other people, family members, previous classmates at Hawaiian Studies was probably the extent of my network there. So it's just people from literally all around the world that are Native Hawaiian, and I never knew there were so many different types of Native Hawaiians. I probably should know better, but I learned a lot during that time. And it was just a lot of different personalities, people coming from different backgrounds. There was a few individuals that I took time to be like, why do you do what you do? Like, why do you do what you do? And I heard a few stories, and it was just really inspiring for me because I couldn't relate to their stories at all, being in like orphanages or being in jail, and then, Phoenix rising from the ashes and then becoming this political presence for Native Hawaiians at the legislature or in school. And I just thought it was really a lot of diversity of upbringings, and that was kind of really impactful. And but in the end, we all found out that we all still knew the same songs and similar. I want to go with Pule, and those are the things that really brought us together, which was really interesting.
How did the leadership happen? How did you?
The first week was all presentations, and everything is available on the the Olelo channel's YouTube station. So everything is available there. So the first week was all presentations. The organization, I think, Na'iopuni in consortium with the facilitators, Linda Colburn, Peter Adler, and Ku'ume Aloha Gomes, kind of planned out-ish the first week, which was just talks from international and national guests. And then the second week...
And the talks were about the process of constitution?
Yeah, so the first professor talked about constitutions, different types of constitutions, how we could find these different constitutions and parts of it, and how we could identify areas that we like and be like, this is a model that worked here. Maybe we can put this into our constitution, all like hypothetical, theoretical. These are all resources available to you, and please utilize them.
Coming into the AHA, was there an agenda? Was it, okay, we're gathering for this amount of time, and this is what we want to accomplish by the end?
No, because the facilitators were facilitating the first week, and they're just there to do just that. And when you get 150 plus people into a room that don't know each other, of course, things can get a little huikau, confusing. And so it took people maybe that first week to put their guard down. A big topic of the first week was about observers, about access from the community. Uncle Walter was obviously there wanting to be an on-site observer. And so that was our first fight for the week, was to get those live broadcasting plenary sessions by Olelo, because originally that wasn't on the agenda. And so the proposal that we had was, we can have observers in here, or we can, and the second proposal was like 24/7 plenary live streaming. And so we got shot down on observers in the room for various reasons. But there was a unanimous support for 24/7 shooting. So all the presentations are there. And then on the second week, a participant, Auntie Lekikoi, suggested, I forget who she wanted to talk. I want to say it was Poka Lainui. And so that opened up the door. So that second week was
He wasn't a delegate?
he was a participant. Yeah,
okay.
he was a participant. So the second week was participant presentation. So Pokalai Nui, Keone Agard, Lily Kala, who else? Bronson Kauhui, all gave presentations. So anybody could give a presentation. They just had to go and contact people. Auntie Moani Keala gave a presentation. So you had not just any one side giving their point of view, but all sides giving their point of view. And I feel, from my point of view, I feel like it was pretty fair across the board. Anybody could be in any committee. We started committees on Friday of the second week, I believe.
What would a committee be?
So a committee is a committee versus a caucus is kind of a big deal. So caucus is where people just go kuka, talk story on the side. And then a committee is a formal group that has an action placed in front of them. They have a task and they need to complete it.
Okay.
And so the AHA identified, I believe, 6 committees on Friday: judicial, executive, preamble, rights. I forget the other 2 right now. Oh, executive and legislative, if I didn't say those already. So those are the 6. And then I believe the following week, people felt that they weren't being heard. After the first draft, which came out, I want to say, the first draft came out on Monday of the 4th week.
Oh.
Because that 3rd week was all just committee work and different exercises to garner everyone's ideas.
And how did you, if you're in committees, how are you communicating with each other and finding out I'm in the judiciary, but what are they doing in the executive? And there must have been one around resources. I know there was.
Resources was everywhere, basically. So I think there was an idea to have an INA committee, but I think a lot of people I was talking to were like, INA should be in every committee.
Yeah,
it shouldn't just be in
out
one.
Of it.
Yeah, like INA is not a vacuum unto its own. It affects all of the 6 parts. And so the committees were identified by the body. And when I say the body, I mean the participants in the room. I don't say delegates because delegates insinuates that people were elected and people are really hoo-hoo about that.
Sorry about that.
So I say participants or like attendees, kind of just neutralizes that and identifies the real situation at hand. So yeah, when I say the body, the participants or attendees in the room made those decisions, and all decisions were made upon consensus. The group decided.
How did the leadership? Yeah.
The group decided to do rules week. There are different models that were set out. Like the Ailike process was one, which actually Ku'me Aloha Gomes, I think, created with a community consortium in the 90s, and it's really kuka based. No one person talks unless everybody else talks, and we kind of adopted that as well. But Robert's Rules was put out and people adopted it. I even voted for it because I'm familiar with Robert's Rules, just doing school type of graduate student organization type of stuff. And it was really just a way to have a clean conversation, because before that people were just talking over each other and people, I'm all about anarchy, but if we're gonna communicate so people can listen to each other, then Robert's Rules was the way to go.
So let's take a little break, and we'll be right back and talk more about the AHA.
Yay.
Aloha, namaskar, and hello. My name is Anu Hittel, and I host a show, Climate Change Beyond Outrage. In it, we go beyond outrage to look at solutions to climate problems facing people, nations, and the world. Join me every Tuesday at 1 o'clock Hawaii Standard Time. See you then.
Hi, my name is Stan Osserman, and I host the show every Friday here on Think Tech Hawaii called Stan the Energy Man. We talk about everything energy, from anaerobic digesters to batteries to hydrogen fuel cell and grid power. And we do that to keep you informed on the latest technology that's out there and the things that are going on in Hawaii. We broadcast every Friday from noon until
welcome back to Hawaii is My Mainland. I'm Kaui Lucas, and this week I have Katie Kamelamela, who participated in the recent AHA on Oahu. And how many people? There were about 150 people?
Yeah, there's about 100. The original count was 154, but daily attendance fluctuated between like 70 and 120. It depended on the voting days and what we were doing on those days, what people would do.
And you mentioned something in the earlier section. So were some of the participants non-U.S. citizens?
Yeah, I want to go with Bruce. I'm not sure, but Bruce was from Sweden. And then Bronson he lives in Ho Chi Minh City, but he's definitely an American citizen. I'm not sure about Bruce though. I should have asked him that. But yeah, his mom, oh poor thing. Bruce's mom actually passed away during the AHA. And he wasn't there to, be with his mother, so the AHA kind of supported him during that time.
Okay, you're going to talk about leadership, but I also want to hear about what was done, and probably through the leadership, to bring this diverse body together, or maybe you didn't come together, I don't know. Tell us.
So, leadership was, when did leadership happen? I believe leadership happened during the first couple days of the second week, because Peter Adler was put on as an interim chair to run Robert's Rules on Friday or Thursday. And then we elected, a list was brought up by all the participants to be chair or interim chair until said body for leadership was determined. And Kule'aina, Kule'aina Lee, he was nominated and took the stand. And later on that day, the body identified what type of leadership they would want. So there was different options that came around, and the final option that everyone got consensus on was a chair, 2 vice chairs, 2 secretaries, and 2 sergeant of arms, 1 male and 1 female. The chair ended up being Kule'aina again. He got renominated to that position, and it stayed. The vice chairs were Makana Paris, and I forget the other name. I forget her name, I'm so sorry. The 2 secretaries was Caitlin Iwohi and Dre Kalili. And then the sergeant of arm male was Roscoe Kahumoku, and then myself was the female sergeant of arms. And I actually had no idea what that meant, other than I get papers and I pass them out, and if things get out of hand, I have to step in. So it was definitely learning on the job. And then it was through the leadership meeting, along with the facilitators, kokua, that agendas for the day were made. And the body also was able to input what went onto the agenda as well. Yeah.
Well, working at the legislature, I'm now very aware of the sergeant-at-arms, and they really do a lot. It's not obvious, but it's the infrastructure, it's the skeletal, the armature of what goes on. It's a very interesting role. I don't know how it played out.
Yeah, for me, it was a lot of just being present made a big difference. I didn't understand that until people were like, you should just be there, or we need you now. And if things got out of hand, they would call me, and I'd come and support whoever was chairing or secretarying, or even the participant that felt like they weren't being heard. I'd go and talk story with them. So no one really told me what to do. I just had to figure it out. It's awkward, but we got through it.
So how was the feeling as far as, or how did it work as far as becoming a body that was able to ultimately put together a 15-page constitution?
Yeah, so there was different exercises, what people thought needed to go into a constitution. And there is a difference between what actually goes into the Constitution and then what goes into law. So there's example, Hawaii, what is known as the state of Hawaii, has a constitution for the state of Hawaii, which is highly garnered from previous constitutions prior to the state within the islands. And then there's also the Hawaii Revised Statutes, which creates those laws which we cite, and we take the state to court or DLNR or whoever. And so some things that were brought up for the Constitution were more for law. And so the Constitution, as I understand, is more aspirational document of like how we would want to engage with our people and engage with the government that we would uplift at that point in time.
How did you deal with the, I'm just thinking of the time that maybe we should talk about that thing that is difficult to talk about, the different strategies as far as federal recognition or independence, and how those two forces played through the AHA process.
It was definitely an undercurrent going on. Clay Aina, the chair, he had an activity where, and it seems divisive on the surface, but at a deeper level, it was a really good tool. But he just called out the elephant in the room. Basically, it was like, anybody that wants to do independence, go on this side. Anybody that's for federal recognition, go to this side. And then the activity was to identify citizen rights and collective rights. Like, what would you want to have as citizen rights and collective rights as an independent body, or a body that supports independence and a body that supports federal recognition? And it was interesting at that time because 2/3 of the room went to independence and then 1/3 went to federal recognition. The independence paper and the federal recognition paper had a lot of overlap, but how they got to that was very different. The independence paper was very straightforward and direct.
Examples?
Just like listing in order, like citizen rights, like we're gonna go through citizen rights. What should citizens have? Okay, cool, we're done. That was the first day. The next day we went back to collective rights, boom, boom, boom. Whereas the federal recognition side went all over the table. They didn't really just stay with what was required or requested as the activity. But in the end, there was this piece of technology called Meeting Sift that we utilized, and it was a really good tool. And so what happened is there's all of those words put down on the independence paper and all those words put down on the federal recognition paper, and then it's a word cloud.
Word cloud.
So
Nice.
any word that comes up more than another is bigger and more pronounced.
I would love to see those.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're somewhere.
Yeah, and so basically there is a word cloud for each, and then we put them together, and then we identified items that were.
Do you remember anything specifically that was on? Or
no,
relatively?
There's a lot of word clouds going on. I think those word clouds are available on aha2016.com actually.
Okay.
Yeah, and we also did other word cloud exercises like, what are 3 words that has to go into the Constitution for you? And one of them was independence, for sure, I know that. That was like the biggest one. So it got in. And not just because it was in a word cloud, but because of a lot of advocacy from independent supporters. You know, people stayed in the room after multiple drafts and were like, hey, we don't see what we told you and it should be in there. And then they just stayed and they battled it out. And
stayed in the room.
yeah, so when we had the committees, which was identified by the body, all the different committees, there's this, I'm not sure, a non-conferencing method is the law of feet, whereas wherever you want to go and participate, you go and participate. It isn't like you're stuck in preamble the whole time or you have to stay in rights the whole time. It's like, if you want something in the preamble, go to preamble, make sure it gets in. And if you want something in rights and you want it in there, make it go in.
That is fabulous.
And so everybody had a chance to go to any committee that they wanted to. The only people that were stuck in their committees would have been the chairs or the liaisons. And the liaisons communicated with leadership just on progress and like where they were at.
Was there any discussion around, I'm trying to remember what the final thing was, did you have to be Native Hawaiian?
Yeah.
Blood.
Yeah.
Proved to, you did, right?
Yeah, in the citizenry section of the Constitution, as it states now, there's only 2 things that you need to be part of what is being called the Native Hawaiian Nation is Hawaiian blood and 18 years old. And then another section of the Constitution, I forget what section that was, but it says that you should be on a Native Hawaiian roll. But during the AHA, there was also talk story of like on-site, I don't know if this is gonna happen, this is just the ideal situation, but on-site registration where we could accept any form of Native Hawaiian identification. So if you went to Kamelamela schools, if you got some scholarship from any organization, then, you know,
What
you
if
could
you
do
have
that.
the handwritten documents from your
Right.
your
Yeah, we talked about that.
Does that count?
Yeah, I think that would be the ideal situation, right?
Right. It would.
Yeah.
It just hasn't happened.
Yeah, that'd
I'm
be
still
the ideal.
waiting for that.
Yeah, because my grandparents, they had to go and get I don't know, it was like a tag or something like that. It was ridiculous, but.
What about the denizens? Was there, so the non-blood Hawaiians who were citizens of the Hawaiian Kingdom, was there any discussion around that?
Yeah, there was extensive conversation about that. I'd say citizenry was probably one of the hot button topics. When citizenry was going on, that I'd say 2/3 of the convention was in that room, like battling it out. And I wasn't there for that one. I was just going in and out because I was just checking on committees to make sure that everyone's okay. But in the end, the kind of what I understand that happened is that for now, take care of Native Hawaiians. And there's a lot of Native Hawaiians in that room that have spouses or parents that aren't Hawaiian. So, we're being cognizant of that and not just shutting people out, but just identifying, like, I guess it's kind of like we can take care of ourselves and we can include everybody along the way.
So I was addressing more the political argument of those people who were not blood Hawaiians, but were...
the kingdom subject.
Yeah, the subject of the kingdom.
Yeah, I think I'm going to answer it the same way. It's just
what?
Take care of Native Hawaiians.
Okay, so there wasn't like a special thing for them if they were...
Not at this point in time.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
not at this point in time, but how the wording is now, to my understanding, isn't the final wording. Sorry. It isn't the final word because it can always be amended. But there are some people that are pretty staunch about Hawaiians taking care of Hawaiians so that we can further our nation and then be inclusive and not repeat including people of non-Hawaiian ancestry into whatever government and another overthrow happening, basically, was kind of what some arguments were put up. And I wasn't in citizenry at any point in time. I didn't make any decisions. I didn't vote on anything in there. But I know that there are people in there that I was like, okay, we have like similar points of view, and I'll be okay with what you guys decide. And yeah.
Okay, well, this feels like a good place to take our second break, and then we'll come back and talk more about the AHA.
Aloha, my name is Justina Spiritu, and I'm the co-host of Hawaii Farmers Series. This is my co-host, Matthew Johnson, and you can catch us every Thursday at 4 p.m. at thinktechhawaii.com. What do we talk about, Matt?
So on Hawaii Farmers Series, we're going to be bringing on the farmers and also supporter of farmers, including restaurants, caterers, as well as government supporters and nonprofits to hear their background stories and understanding our local ag community just a little bit better.
Yeah, essentially there's a lot more that goes into farming and the local food community beyond just producing the food. And we want to feature and get the background story on all these folks and see how we all work together as a community. So join us every Thursday. Aloha.
Welcome back. I'm Kaui Lucas, and this is Hawaii is My Mainland on Think Tech Hawaii. We're here every Friday at 3 p.m. And this week, Katie Kamelamela has been giving us insight into the recent AHA and the new voice, a new voice and a new look at sovereignty and the options for the Native Hawaiian community. Let's have a look at that graphic that you sent over, Katie, and you can talk about how that plays into all of this.
So like I was mentioning, this is one of the outcomes of one of the 6 committees that were created. There's also a 7th committee that was created, which was the International Committee. I can talk about that later. But this is the legislative authority. It would be a unicameral system with 43 representatives. And so there's a lot of different ideas that were going on within legislative, and this is kind of one of the final iterations that they had. And probably the item that sticks up the most to people is the representation for Ni'ihau and Koho'olawe. Considering at current stance, Ni'ihau is privately owned, and Koho'olawe currently doesn't have any permanent residents right now. But the idea behind how this was apportioned was for, there's a whole formula for it that I think we can talk about at a later date.
Okay.
But basically the idea was to have home rule for all of the islands, even islands that have been traditionally part of other areas, like Ni'ihau is usually seen as part of Kauai, and Koho'olawe is usually part of Maui Nui.
And Molokai.
Yeah, and Molokai. So Maui Nui is Koho'olawe, Maui, Molokai, and Lanai. And so the idea was to give everybody home rule autonomy.
The agreement was that islands would have their own sort of governing body, or
Yeah, it'd be more home rule. So kind of the idea of where there are governors on each island before. It's kind of like that idea. So people have their own system on each island. So Oahu isn't just dominating the conversation all the time. Now living on the Big Island, I totally get it.
it took
And-
me living
yeah.
in Kona for 2 years. Oh, I see what they're talking about.
Yeah, fully. And then even living in the countryside of Oahu, I get how Honolulu gets all of the, all the attention due to population and economics, and that's where it's at.
So it sounds like there weren't land borders. I mean, about the ceded lands, or there. I mean, it's a nation without borders in a way, right?
I talked to Zuriaki, or I was emailing with him, and there was reference to ceded lands, why we didn't talk about it, and in the Constitution it's identified as national lands. I think ceded lands is like 1 point something million, whereas all of the lands in Hawaii is like 4 million acres. And so the idea, Zuriaki was the chief drafter, he's the John Hancock of the Constitution basically, and his intention for using national lands instead of ceded lands was, instead of kind of settling for 1.x million acres, that we should claim all the 4 million acres and leave that open and not just take the bits. So it's not the same verbiage as we would normally see, but that's how it's identified within the document as national lands.
I can see how doing it that way would make it a lot easier and not get caught up in the
Current system.
Yeah. I'm seeing that as a concept, sort of going through that. We have a tweet. Do you agree federal recognition is a bad idea for Native Hawaiians? Why or why not?
That's a really good question. Is it a bad idea? For sure, January 2016, if you read my little post for Kamelamela, I would say yes. And then usually I would just be protesting on the outside, and then coming on the inside, I think that my mind is opened a lot more. I feel prior to February 2016, I only stayed in my lane and I didn't really cross over to talk to other people. And now that I've crossed over and talked to other people and then done my own homework to verify those situations, I think that we shouldn't just look and ask, is federal recognition a good or a bad thing? But we should also identify all the other avenues that have been exhausted or are being exhausted through the lawful Hawaiian government, through the nation of Hawaii, through Henry Noah guys. I think that's a really good thing that, that's kind of one thing that I want to do, is put it into context of where have all of the previous movements gone, like Kalahui Hawaii, and where are we going to move to in the future. So I know it's a roundabout way, and I'm still making up my own mind about it, but I did vote aye on this Constitution, mainly so that we could continue to sit and talk story with people and continue to have these conversations of vetting this process.
It is so important, and I did tear up a little.
Yeah, you did. I
Sorry.
was wondering if
I'm
I said
sorry.
something wrong.
No, you said something right, and that the right thing is getting out of your lane and melting the edges and allowing the information to come in, and then doing your homework.
Yeah, it's hard.
We have to do that. We really have to do that because we have to get out of the place we're in right now, and that's not going to happen if we all stay stuck in our little circles. So how there is this constitution now. So now what? And what is your vision? Tell us your vision.
My personal vision may not be what's actually going on right now, but what is going on right now with participants that are choosing to move forward is they opened up their website, or there's a few websites. The AHA's website is AHA 2016, and there's imagery, some of the word clouds, and the documents there. And then one that was just launched, I want to go with Wednesday or Tuesday, is alohalahui.com, and that's to garner monetary support from the community for ratification and education of the Constitution. And so the next steps is education and ratification. And I think currently the timeline is within the next year.
Is that same body, the structure, the leadership, everything?
Leadership is not the same because the leadership that was voted on at the AHA is just for that, and we have adjourned. And so leadership is whoever's raising their hand and is doing the work. So I know some people that are doing the work. I'm not one of them. I'm just a supporter right now, just trying to get back to school and research and all of that, but supporting how I can through continued conversations with my friends who are independents, lawful Hawaiian government people, as well as people that are pushing it forward. Having those hard conversations and continual scrutiny of character is really good for personal growth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And healing. Well, we haven't talked about that too much, but today. But when I spoke to you on the phone this weekend. You talked about some interesting things along that line about the healing that needs to happen on a personal level, and maybe you can address that a little bit.
Yeah. So when I read on Facebook and when I talk to some people, I just hear like pain and hurt. And it's historical pain. It's historical hurt. A lot of people are hurting. They don't even know it. And I guess being Sergeant of Arms, you just deal with that up front, and there's just no way to get around it. And so how to console people, how to bring it to the surface and nurture it and get to that higher emotional intelligence state so that we can articulate our feelings instead of yelling at other people or, branding other people for being a way that we may not or actually may agree with on the underside, but maybe aren't able to uplift that person within us. So I feel like, for me at the AHA, it was a lot of self-reflection, constant self-reflection, especially in being in leadership and not even understanding what that meant until the fourth week, which was, I'm just doing my best. But yeah, just really being there for people, listening to ourselves, having alone time, doing our own homework, asking people that may have been doing the homework a lot longer than us is super critical. And it was a lot of, there were a lot of relationships at that AHA where I had nothing that I wanted to do with them. And a lot of those relationships I've mended, and now we're on talking terms and are able to communicate with each other.
The division happened before the AHA or during?
Yeah, this is just everyone came with their own baggage.
Right.
Some people a lot less, some people a lot more. And for me, I faced things that I didn't think I was gonna face there. Just my personal relationships. Sure. And it was more important for me to get over those barriers that I had created. And one of my friends at the AHA was like, wow, you just really hate a lot of people, don't you? And I told him, I was like, it's really astute observation, but now that I've gotten to know people, I don't have the same opinion. And he responded back, trust and respect are earned. And I feel like a lot of people earn trust and respect, which may not be a lot of people's view, but that's my view. There's some people that I gained a lot of respect for based upon their character. And there's a lot of people that I don't need to talk to ever again because of their character. And especially the post-AHA interactions or engagements that people are putting out there. I'm trying to be on the positive and be really solution-based, solution-focused, action-oriented. And I really feel like once Hawaiians get there of just being action-oriented and doing, then we're fine. It's like when we're just stuck in this stage of just talking about people, like how I said earlier, I have friends that I've been reaching out to that are in the independence diehards, you know, myself included, and they're not answering my phone calls, but they'll tag me on things on Facebook. And I'm like, oh, what's up with that? Like, you could have just talked to me about it. You have my phone number. You can text me at any time. I'm totally reachable through social media. But yet there's a need to have this public dialogue, which isn't just about me, but it's about this greater group. And I'm sure all of us have worked with groups larger than 20 people, and it gets complex, and you're not gonna be happy all the time. Like, I wasn't happy with all the decisions that were made, but I could live with them. And yeah.
So we have about a minute left. And first, I just want to say my profound thanks. There's so much more, and we knew that before we started, but is there anything else that you feel you would like to communicate at this point?
I guess no matter who you are, where you're from, whether you're Hawaiian or non-Hawaiian, if you live in Hawaii, we should be supporting Hawaiians in our cultural practices, in our beliefs, in how we view the world. And one isn't better than the other, but they should be taken together side by side. And it's important because a lot of people that are taking care of our resources are Hawaiian. They're not paid on the books. They're just doing it because
all over,
because it's our community.
Because you have to.
And that's really who we're trying to uplift. And if the education piece isn't getting to everyone as quick as they would like it to, Kamelamela, like, that's not the intention. We're doing the best we can. And although there was the AHA in February, people are still on board and are not getting paid. And they're taking it out of their own pocket, and they're not grumbling about it. They're really excited to do this work. So, and on the other side, those that are protesting, they're doing the same thing, you know. They're doing everything like Aloha Aina style. And I think that's all really important. But I really feel like if we can get out of our lanes for a second and make a friend, or not even a friend, just have a civil conversation with somebody from the other side to be like, why do you think that? Like, why do you believe in federal recognition? Like, why do you think independence is gonna work? Like, what's your plan? Like, what's your detailed plan to get to federal recognition? What's your detailed plan to get to independence? And then we can see where we're at.
Thank you, Katie. I hope we get a chance to do this again.
Yay. Thanks for having me, Kaui.
Thank you for joining us here on Think Tech Hawaii with Hawaii is My Mainland. I will see you next Friday.